while now. Have you liked being at Harvard?
Oh, I love being at Harvard. It's fun. Students are great. Happiness everywhere.
Oh my goodness, it's been so energizing to be here on campus.
It's incredible. I think the thing that sticks out to me is just the energy.
I'm really enjoying my time. It's been great. I love the community. I could do without the weather, but the rest of it's been great.
It's really good, and it may be the best thing I've ever done.
After a tumultuous few years, how do you think this midterm season is going to be different for conservatives? From a communications perspective, what needs to be done differently to ensure Republican success?
Well, right now, I don't think they need to do much else right now. The first midterm in an election of a new president usually goes pretty bad for his party.
Right.
So Republicans are on cruise control right now. If the president is not popular, it doesn't go well for his party, and right now the president's not very popular.
As a progressive, how do you feel about Biden's first 2 years in office? Do you think he was successful in completing his campaign promises, or is there something better he can do?
I think it's been really successful so far. I would love to see them touting more of their successes. Honestly, on some of the progressive priorities, I would love to see more movement. I think there's a lot more that could be done. Any help that could happen, especially at the executive level when Congress refuses to act, I think would go a long way in letting progressives know that this administration really is prioritizing the issues that matter to the progressive movement.
Ukraine has been on people's minds very recently. How do you think America is navigating this situation? Are we doing it successfully? What better can Biden do to deal with this overwhelming situation?
Well, first of all, I think Ukraine changed the world. The world changed on February 24th. I think the U.S. has done well. I think the Western alliance has done well. I think one of the problems, though, is that from where we all look at this crisis, we see Vladimir Putin as having made a big mistake, which I think he did, and as having gotten isolated. But I think when he looks at this situation and sees that he's got at least some tacit support from China, and India hasn't opposed him, and the African states by and large haven't opposed him, maybe he doesn't seem as isolated as we think.
Earlier this month, you moderated a panel discussion about affirmative action. What stake do you believe the Asian American community has on this upcoming Supreme Court case? And how can our community work to be in solidarity of people with other racial groups within the context of this case and in general?
If anything, I'm really encouraging everyone to really get organized to, come together, educate our own communities and have those discussions, but at the same time be organizing with other communities of color, other allies.
Can you talk about some of your early involvement in the Peace Corps in Tunisia and what made you want to continue this type of work?
When I went to Tunisia as a Peace Corps volunteer after college, I discovered that there was an inner self in me, and I got so appreciative of what Tunisians taught me, what we learned together, what the languages are about, food, culture, family life, that I wanted to continue to help make it possible for other people to have that same experience.
The past couple of years have been increasingly tumultuous with the rise of Donald Trump, COVID-19, and a racial reckoning through the Black Lives Matter movement. How have these constant changes impacted your view of America and how you approach your work as a campaign strategist?
I think that, moments of change are always going to be challenging. I think the way I kind of look at it is, these are all opportunities.
Right.
People are seeing more and more. I think that there are a lot of progressive priorities that matter deeply for a lot of families. And I think we can take advantage of this moment and make sure that people see that things like universal child care and raising the minimum wage, alleviating student debt, bringing down rent so that people can afford to live, that those aren't issues that are just popular for progressives. They're things that are needed for people across the country.
So the concept of white saviorism is something many people have begun to reflect upon, especially when considering international service trips. What is the Peace Corps' policy bent to combat such an ideology? What is something the Peace Corps has been doing to further that cultural acceptance and understanding?
The three goals of Peace Corps are what counter what you were just talking about. Namely, that we provide some support to help with training, as it's listed in Goal 1. Importantly, Goal 2, which is equal. I just shared me. I didn't share America. I didn't share big, broad beliefs. I just shared me as a human being. 3, equally important, is we bring that experience back and share it here to also appreciate what host country experiences are, their strengths, and what we learned from them. And that in combination with being there 2 years. And then finally, we do what the community asks. We don't do what we want. It's not about us.
To pivot a little bit, to talk about, I guess, social media and new technologies, this new era of politics has been very much defined by Twitter, Facebook, and even TikTok recently. How do you think this has changed both journalism as a profession and also just national politics and communication strategy?
It's changed a lot. I think more importantly, it's changed the dialogue in the country. I think it has made the shouting voices louder, and it's made the moderating voices harder to hear.
Right.
I think it has tended to make people in my profession, in journalism, want to become part of the shouting fest. But I also think that there's a kind of a democratization that's possible there, that a lot more people are engaged in public dialogue if we can figure out how to make the tone match the need for dialogue.
Can you talk more about the work you've done with Apia Vote and what got you initially interested and passionate about this kind of work with the Asian American community?
So I actually came up with the idea of Asian Pacific Islander American Vote back in 1996 when I was actually a staff member with the organization Chinese Americans. At that time, the community was slowly growing. We knew that by 2000, the census numbers would show that the API community was growing at quite a fast rate. But at the same time, we were starting to develop infrastructure within our community to tackle issues and do advocacy work. But we weren't getting this same attention because our community was not voting. So that's why we really believe that it was time for us by 2007 that we really need to build a standalone organization to actually focus on increasing voter registration and participation.
So you've worked within the Republican Party for quite some time. How have you seen its internal dynamics and goals change over time? And what has Trump's rise contributed to that change?
Yeah, we're definitely a less substantive party right now, which bothers me a lot. It is a much more of a personality-driven party, much more, my old boss, Paul Ryan, calls it the entertainment wing of the politics of the party is ascendant. And yeah, Trump obviously hit the gas on that in terms of personality politics.
I guess I just have one last question. What advice do you have for students who want to go into public service, who want to work on Capitol Hill and or do political communications work, who want to go into the political sphere and in electoral work, especially young Asian American women who have such aspirations, who are interested in politics and policy work, who want to go into the political sphere as you've done, especially young women of color who have such aspirations?
Get acquainted with a language. Think through cultures. One, who are we? What is my own particular culture? So I can better understand other cultures. Do service, and it's service right here on campus.
Just go for it. There are certainly things that I would emphasize. Strong writing is important. Honing your political instincts are important. But so much of being good at politics is learning on the job. And so if you have the opportunity to just go, immerse yourself in it, be a sponge, learn the process, and just work harder than everybody else, you're going to rise up. Being a good person goes a really long way in Washington.
You know, I would say the first thing is to really identify what is your passion, what actually brings you joy, because politics and policy can be quite challenging. The other thing is to really create and build your own cohort of supporters, of other women, of different different backgrounds, so then that way you can actually work collectively and actually build upon each other's strengths.
Well, I think the first thing to do is to be engaged. I mean, I think that one of the great temptations, and we've talked about this with my students, is to see this polarized environment and the ugliness of it in some ways and decide to check out. So I think that's a mistake. And the second thing to do, I think, is to listen. I think young people could do themselves and all the rest of us a lot of good if they would just listen a little bit more and shout a little bit less.
Do it. Do not, please do it. We need you. We need you there. It has taken so much of my career, and I still struggle with it, dealing with imposter syndrome and wondering if I really deserve to be where I am. Find your people. Get a good group text going on and let people that care about you pump you up and remind you every day that you belong here.